Funke stood frozen at the door of her family's small home in Makoko. The eviction notice trembled in her hands. 3 days. They had 3 days to leave the place they had called home for 12 years. Her scholarship to King's College meant nothing if her family had nowhere to live. She crumpled the paper and pressed it against her chest, where her heart hammered with fear. How could she focus on helping others with math when her own world was falling apart? Oluwaseun hated mathematics with a passion that burned in his stomach every time Mr. Okonkwo handed back test papers. Today was no different. The big red 32% at the top of his paper made him sink lower in his seat. His father would be furious. Another failed math test meant his dream of studying engineering was slipping further away. The classroom door opened, interrupting Mr. Okonkwo's lecture about disappointment. A girl Oluwaseun had never seen before walked in. Wearing the King's College uniform that somehow looked both too new and too big on her slender frame. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor as she handed a slip of paper to Mr. Okonkwo. "Class, we have a new student joining us today," Mr. Okonkwo announced, his stern face softening slightly. "This is Funke Adeyemi. She's transferred to us on a full academic scholarship. I expect you all to make her feel welcome." Whispers immediately spread through the classroom. Full scholarships were rare at King's College, one of Lagos' most prestigious schools. The only empty seat was next to Oluwaseun. As Funke walked toward him, he noticed her worn shoes and the careful way she carried her second-hand books. She sat down without looking at him, her back straight, her focus entirely on Mr. Okonkwo as he returned to the lesson on quadratic equations. A week later, Mr. Okonkwo handed out a surprise quiz. Oluwaseun felt sweat trickle down his back as he stared at the problems. None of it made sense. Next to him, Funke's pencil moved confidently across her paper. When the bell rang, Oluwaseun had only answered 3 of the 10 questions. "Pass your papers forward," Mr. Okonkwo said. After collecting them, he flipped through quickly, his expression growing darker. Disappointing, as usual. Except, he held up one paper. "Miss Adeyemi has scored a perfect 10 out of 10, despite being new to our class." All eyes turned to Funke, who seemed to shrink in her seat. After class, as students filed out, Oluwaseun overheard Deo, one of the popular boys, whisper, "No wonder she's on scholarship. Bookworm from the slums." Funke pretended not to hear, but Oluwaseun saw her shoulders stiffen. He wanted to say something, but the word stuck in his throat. That night, staring at his own failed quiz that his father had signed with a disappointed scrawl, Oluwaseun made a decision. He needed help, and maybe the new girl was his last hope. The next day, Oluwaseun gathered his courage during lunch break. He found Funke sitting alone under a mango tree, reading a worn mathematics textbook with more focus than anyone he'd ever seen. "Excuse me," he said, his voice cracking slightly. Funke looked up, surprised that someone was talking to her. "I'm Oluwaseun. I sit next to you in math." "I know who you are," she replied, closing her book. "You're the one who draws cars in your notebook instead of taking notes." Oluwaseun felt his face grow hot. "Yeah, that's me. Look, I need help. I'm failing math, and my father will kill me if I don't pass. I noticed you're really good at it." Funke studied him for a moment. "And why should I help you?" The question caught him off guard. "Because I could help you too. I noticed the other students don't talk to you much. King's College can be tough if you don't know how things work here. I could help you fit in." A small smile appeared on Funke's face. "So you want to trade? Math tutoring for social survival tips." "Exactly," Oluwaseun said, relieved she understood. "I know everyone here. I can show you how to avoid trouble and maybe even make some friends." Funke extended her hand. "Deal. We start today after school. Bring your textbook and all your failed tests." They met in the school library that afternoon. Funke wasted no time getting to the point. Show me the last test you failed, she demanded. Oluwaseun handed over his crumpled quiz with the red marks all over it. Funke examined it carefully, then looked up. Your biggest problem is that you don't understand the basics. You're trying to memorize formulas without knowing why they work. For the next hour, Funke took him back to fundamental concepts he should have learned years ago. She used simple examples, drawing pictures to explain abstract ideas. By the end, Oluwaseun had solved the problem correctly for the first time in months. That wasn't so hard, he said, staring at his work in disbelief. That's just the beginning, Funke replied, packing up her books. Now it's your turn. What's my first social lesson? Oluwaseun looked at her carefully. First, never eat lunch alone. It makes you an easy target. Tomorrow, you're sitting with me and my friends. And that uniform. We need to make it fit better. My sister can help with that. Funke nodded, taking mental notes. Is that all? For now. Social stuff is like math, you need to learn the basics first. Oluwaseun kept his promise. The next day, Funke joined his lunch table, where his friends David and Kofi greeted her with curious looks. This is Funke. She's saving my life in math, Oluwaseun explained. The scholarship girl. David asked, then quickly added, that's cool. We could use some brains at this table. Conversation flowed awkwardly at first, but when the topic turned to the strict teachers, Funke surprised everyone with her quiet sense of humor. By the end of lunch, David had offered to lend her his notes from the previous term. After school, math lessons continued in the library. Oluwaseun found himself actually enjoying the sessions as Funke made complex ideas simple with real-world examples. Think of equations like a balance scale, she explained. What you do to one side, you must do to the other. One evening, Oluwaseun offered to walk Funke home. She hesitated. It's far. I live in Makoko. I know where it is, he said. My driver can take us. Funke's face closed off. I don't need your charity. It's not charity, he insisted. It's getting dark. Let me at least make sure you get home safely. Eventually she agreed. As the driver navigated through Lagos traffic and into the waterside slum where Funke lived, Oluwaseun tried to hide his shock. Makoko was a different world from his family's Victoria Island mansion. Wooden shacks stood on stilts above the water, connected by narrow planks. Children played in boats around houses that looked like they might collapse any moment. Now you know, Funke said quietly as they stopped at the neighborhood's edge. This is why I need that scholarship. 2 weeks into the arrangement, Mr. Okonkwo handed back another test. Oluwaseun held his breath as he turned over his paper. 68%, it read in the usual red ink, but this time with a note, improvement. Keep it up. I passed, he whispered to Funke, who smiled genuinely for the first time since he'd met her. I knew you could do it, she said. You're not stupid, you just needed someone to explain it differently. That afternoon, they celebrated with ice cream from a shop near school. Oluwaseun realized that Funke had ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. Remembering her home in Makoko, he understood why. The social lessons are working too, Funke said, changing the subject. Sarah from English class invited me to study with her group yesterday. Sarah's nice, Oluwaseun nodded. Her father is a senator, but she doesn't act stuck up about it. They fell into a comfortable routine. 3 days of math tutoring each week, with Oluwaseun steadily improving. In return, Funke began joining study groups, making cautious friendships, and learning to navigate the complex social hierarchies of King's College. What neither of them expected was how much they would enjoy each other's company. Oluwaseun found himself looking forward to their sessions, even bringing extra snacks he knew Funke liked but would never buy for herself. A month into their friendship, Oluwaseun's mother announced they would be hosting their annual dinner party for his father's business associates. You should invite your math tutor, his mother suggested. Your father would be pleased to meet the person responsible for your improved grades. Oluwaseun hesitated. She's not from our usual circle, Mom. His mother raised an eyebrow. Is that a problem? Your father and I weren't born wealthy, you know. We worked hard to get where we are. The next day, Oluwaseun awkwardly extended the invitation. It's okay if you don't want to come. These parties can be boring. To his surprise, Funke agreed. I should see how the other half lives, right? Part of my social education. The night of the party, Oluwaseun waited nervously by the door. When Funke arrived, he barely recognized her. She wore a simple but elegant blue dress that had to be borrowed. His sister immediately took Funke under her wing, introducing her to everyone as the genius who finally taught my brother mathematics. Funke handled herself with quiet dignity, impressing Oluwaseun's father with her knowledge and ambition. Medicine, she told him when he asked about her plans. I want to become a doctor and open a clinic in my community. Later, as they stepped onto the balcony for fresh air, Oluwaseun said, everyone loves you. You didn't need my help at all. Funke looked out at the city lights. That's not true. I would never have been invited to a place like this without you. After a pause, she added, your family is nice. They don't look down on me. They respect hard work, Oluwaseun said. And so do I. The following Monday, Funke didn't come to school. Oluwaseun texted her, but received no reply. By the third day of her absence, he was worried enough to visit Makoko after school. Finding her house took time. When he finally located the small wooden structure, he found Funke sitting outside with red-rimmed eyes, surrounded by boxes of belongings. What happened? He asked, sitting beside her on a wooden crate. Silently, she handed him a crumpled notice. It stated that their section of Makoko was being demolished for a development project. All residents had to vacate within 3 days. Where will you go? Oluwaseun asked, his stomach dropping. I don't know, Funke admitted, her voice hollow. My father has been asking relatives, but everyone's place is too small already. We might have to go back to the village, which means I'd lose my scholarship at King's. Oluwaseun thought quickly. You could stay with us temporarily. No, Funke cut him off. I'm not a charity case. My whole family needs a solution, not just me. Oluwaseun sat quietly, watching boats move through the water channels of Makoko. Around them, other families were also packing up their lives. An idea began to form in his mind. What if we raised money, he suggested. Enough for your family to rent a place nearby so you could stay in school. Funke looked skeptical. How? We'd need a lot. I'm not sure yet, Oluwaseun admitted. But I know people with money. There has to be a way. Back at school, Oluwaseun couldn't focus on classes. During lunch, he gathered his closest friends and explained Funke's situation. We need to raise enough money for her family to find new housing, he concluded. Any ideas? My dad's company does charity events all the time, Sarah offered. But those take months to organize. We don't have months, Oluwaseun said, frustrated. David, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. What about a math competition? With an entry fee. Everyone looked at him. Think about it, David continued. Funke is a math genius. We've got the Children's Day holiday coming up. We could host a competition with different age categories, charge an entry fee, and get local businesses to donate prizes. That could work, Kofi nodded. My uncle owns that event space near the school. I bet he'd let us use it for free if we tell him why. Ideas began flowing rapidly. Sarah's father could help promote it through his connections. Another classmate's mother worked at a radio station that could announce it. Oluwaseun's father might convince his business associates to sponsor prizes. But who would enter a math competition? Someone asked. Are you kidding? Oluwaseun replied. Every parent in Lagos wants their child to excel in school. If we make it sound prestigious enough, they'll pay good money for the opportunity to show off their kids' skills. By the end of lunch, they had the beginnings of a plan. Oluwaseun couldn't wait to tell Funke. The next day, Funke returned to school, looking exhausted. Her family had been granted a 1-week extension before eviction, but nothing more. When Oluwaseun shared the math competition idea, her expression changed from defeat to cautious hope. "Do you really think it could work?" she asked. "It has to," he replied with more confidence than he felt. They formed committees immediately. Sarah and her group handled marketing, designing posters and reaching out to local media. David and Kofi secured the venue and worked on logistics. Oluwaseun leveraged his father's connections for sponsorships and prizes. Funke was tasked with the most important job, creating the actual competition questions for different age groups. She worked tirelessly, designing problems that were challenging but not impossible, that tested understanding rather than memorization. Word spread quickly, especially after Sarah's father mentioned it during a radio interview. "We are hosting Lagos' first community mathematics competition to benefit displaced families from Makoko," he announced. "We are expecting the brightest young minds to participate." The school administration, impressed by the students' initiative, offered their support. Mr. Okonkwo volunteered to be a judge, bringing additional credibility to the event. What surprised Oluwaseun most was how everyone at King's College rallied around the cause. Even Deo, who had made fun of Funke's background, now headed the registration committee. "It's a good cause," he shrugged when Oluwaseun questioned his sudden interest. "Plus, it looks good on university applications." Whatever the reasons, the momentum was building. With just 5 days to go, they already had over 100 registered participants. 3 days before the competition, disaster struck. The company that had promised to print the competition materials backed out, claiming scheduling conflicts. Without question booklets and answer sheets, they couldn't proceed. "How much would it cost to print everything ourselves?" Oluwaseun asked during their emergency meeting. "More than we have in our budget," Sarah replied, looking stressed. "And all the affordable print shops need at least a week's notice." Funke, who had been quiet during the discussion, suddenly stood up. "I might know someone who can help. There's a small print shop in Makoko. The owner's daughter goes to the primary school where I sometimes tutor. Would they have the capacity?" David asked doubtfully. "It's worth asking," Funke insisted. "They are good people who need the business." That afternoon, instead of going to their usual tutoring session, Oluwaseun accompanied Funke to Makoko. The print shop was little more than a room with 2 aging machines, but the owner, Mr. Jimo, listened carefully to their request. "It's a tight timeline," he admitted, "but my brother has a shop too. Between us, we can get it done." His price was fair, lower than the company that had backed out. As they left, Oluwaseun realized something important. They weren't just helping Funke's family, their competition was already creating opportunities in her community. The next obstacle came from an unexpected source. The day before the event, the venue manager called with bad news. A pipe had burst, flooding part of the space. They could still use it, but only had access to half the planned area. "We'll have to run the competition in shifts," Kofi decided after inspecting the damage. "Younger kids first, then the older ones. It means a longer day, but we can make it work." The team adjusted their plans, working late into the night to reorganize everything. Through each challenge, Oluwaseun noticed how Funke never lost her cool, always finding practical solutions. Her determination inspired everyone to work harder. Competition day dawned bright and clear. Oluwaseun arrived at the venue at 6 a.m. to find Funke already there, arranging desks in neat rows. Her family had moved their belongings to a relative's house temporarily, buying them a few more days to find a solution. "Did you sleep at all?" Oluwaseun asked, noting the dark circles under her eyes. "A little," she replied with a tired smile. "Too nervous." By 8 a.m., children and parents began arriving. The turnout exceeded their expectations, over 200 participants across all age categories. Sarah and her team efficiently handled registration while David directed people to their seats. Mr. Okonkwo and the other volunteer judges took their positions. At exactly 9 a.m., the primary school competition began. Watching the young children tackle Funke's carefully crafted problems, Oluwaseun felt a surge of pride in what they had accomplished. Throughout the day, problems were solved, tears were shed, mostly by competitive parents when their children didn't win, and community was built. Local food vendors who had been invited to sell refreshments did brisk business. A news crew from a local station came to film the event. The secondary school competition, held in the afternoon, was intensely competitive. Oluwaseun recognized students from rival schools, all focused intently on their papers. Although he wasn't participating, he found himself wishing he could test his new math skills, something he never thought he'd feel. By evening, as the last scores were being tallied and winners announced, Oluwaseun pulled Funke aside. "I think we did it," he said, showing her the preliminary financial report. Between entry fees, sponsorships, and donations made throughout the day, they had raised significantly more than their target. For the first time in weeks, Funke's smile reached her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you, all of you." "You don't need to," Oluwaseun replied. "That's what friends do."